The last thing my father said to me before I left home was simple. If you marry him, you are no longer my daughter. I remember standing there in the doorway, holding a single suitcase. My mother was behind him, silent, not crying, not stopping him, just watching. And in that moment, I realized I was about to lose my entire family, all because of the man standing beside me. My name is Maya, and this is the story of the day my family chose pride over love. I grew up in a house where everything looked perfect. My father owned several businesses. My mother hosted charity events. Our home was large, elegant, quiet. Too quiet. Because in our house, reputation mattered more than happiness. My future had already been planned before I even graduated college. A respectable career, a respectable husband, a respectable life. Everything respectable. And then I met Daniel. Daniel worked at a small repair shop near my university. He fixed phones, laptops, anything people brought to him. He wasn't rich, not even close, but he was kind. The kind of kind you can't fake. The first time we spoke, my phone had completely stopped working. He looked at it, smiled, and said, "Well, the good news is your photos are safe. The bad news is your phone is very, very dead." I laughed, and somehow that laugh turned into coffee. Coffee turned into long walks. Walks turned into late-night conversations. And before I realized it, I had fallen in love. Real love. The kind that makes you feel safe. But my parents didn't see it that way. The first time my father met Daniel, he didn't even shake his hand. He simply asked one question. "How much do you earn in a year?" Daniel answered honestly. That was his mistake. My father leaned back in his chair, looked at me, and said, "You are embarrassing this family." The dinner ended early, but the arguments didn't. For weeks, my parents tried everything: anger, threats, even guilt. My mother cried and said, "We raised you better than this." But love doesn't disappear just because someone disapproves. So one night, Daniel looked at me and said quietly, "I don't want to take you away from your family, but I also don't want to lose you." And that was the moment I made my choice. The night I told my father I was marrying Daniel was the night my life changed forever. He didn't shout, he didn't argue, he simply said the sentence I will never forget. "If you walk out that door with him, you are no longer my daughter." My heart was pounding so loudly I could barely hear myself breathe, but I picked up my suitcase, Daniel held my hand, and together we walked out. The first winter after we left my parents' house was the hardest. Our apartment had thin walls, so thin that I could hear the neighbors arguing at night, and sometimes they could probably hear us too. Not arguing, just worrying. One evening, I was sitting at the tiny kitchen table, staring at a stack of unpaid bills. Electricity, rent, internet. Numbers I had never worried about before, because my whole life, someone else had always handled them. Daniel walked in carrying 2 grocery bags. He set them on the counter and smiled. "I found chicken on sale," he said. I tried to smile back, but the tears came before I could stop them. "I ruined your life," I whispered. Daniel looked confused. "Why would you say that?" "You could have married someone with money, a big house, security. Instead, you chose me." Daniel walked over slowly. He knelt beside my chair. Then he took my hands and said something I still remember word for word. Maya, a big house isn't security. Loving the person sitting across from you, that's security. That night, we ate cheap noodles for dinner, and somehow it tasted better than any meal I had eaten in my parents' mansion. A few months later, something unexpected happened. I saw my mother. Not at home, not at a family dinner, but at the supermarket. She was standing near the fruit section, holding a basket. For a moment, I thought about walking over, about hugging her, about asking if she missed me. But before I could move, she saw me. Our eyes met, and then she looked away, like I was a stranger. I stood there frozen, holding a carton of milk, feeling like I had just lost my family all over again. That night, Daniel noticed I was quiet. I told him what happened. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he simply pulled me into a hug and whispered, "One day, they'll see what I see." And slowly, life began to change. Daniel started repairing electronics from home. Then people recommended him to friends. Friends recommended him to businesses. Within 5 years, his small repair service turned into a growing company. Within 8 years, we owned our own house. And by the 10th year, we had 2 children, a little boy with Daniel's smile and a little girl with my stubborn personality. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours. 10 years passed faster than I expected. Our house was filled with noise now. Children laughing, toys scattered across the living room. Daniel's company had grown so much that he sometimes worked late. But one evening, while we were cleaning up after dinner, my son asked a question that caught me completely off guard. "Mom, why don't we have grandparents like my friends?" The room went quiet. Daniel looked at me carefully, waiting to see what I would say. I sat down beside my son. "Sometimes families make mistakes," I told him, "but that doesn't mean they stop loving each other." He thought about that for a moment. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. "Well, if they come back one day, I'll forgive them." Children make forgiveness sound so simple. Adults know it rarely is. Then, one winter evening, there was a knock on our door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I froze. My parents were standing there. They looked older, tired, different. My father's shoulders were no longer straight. My mother's hands were trembling. For 10 years, they had never called, never visited, never even asked if I was alive. And now they were standing on my doorstep. My father spoke first. His voice was barely above a whisper. "We lost everything." His businesses had collapsed. Debt had swallowed their savings. Their house had been sold. For the first time in my life, my father looked small. Daniel walked up behind me. He looked at my parents. Then he gently placed a hand on my shoulder and said something I will never forget. "They can come inside." The same man my father once called worthless was now the only person willing to help them. That night, we shared dinner, quietly, awkwardly. My father barely spoke, but when he looked at Daniel, there was something new in his eyes. Not pride, not anger, respect. Later that night, after my parents had gone to sleep, I sat alone in the kitchen, thinking about everything that had happened. The anger, the years of silence, the pain. Daniel sat beside me and asked softly, "Are you okay?" I nodded, but inside, I was still that girl standing in the doorway with a suitcase. The girl who had lost her family, and somehow found a new one. Life has a strange way of teaching us humility. Sometimes the people we look down on become the ones who save us. So tell me honestly, if you were in my place, would you forgive the parents who abandoned you? Or would you close the door the same way they once did?